On today's show, the Houston Rockets rested everybody against the LA Clippers, so they lost. But there were still some very encouraging performances from Reed Sheppard and a couple other guys on the roster. Plus, we take a look at the Phoenix Suns pick watch status as the Suns have officially been eliminated from playoff contention. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and a credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Thursdays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Also, check out our Locked On Rockets newsletter. Would sincerely appreciate all of that support. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. We're going to talk a little bit about this Rockets-Clippers game, despite the fact that the Rockets are very clearly now prioritizing rest for their key pieces. And maybe this will be the only game that they prioritize rest. They've got 2 more games left in the regular season, Friday night against the Lakers in LA, and then back home Sunday against the Denver Nuggets. I would imagine that even if they do prioritize rest for the Lakers game, that maybe the Sunday afternoon game against the Denver Nuggets, the final home game of the regular season, they're not going to do the fans dirty. That's fan appreciation day, all that stuff. They'll play the starters for at least a half of basketball to give the fans some entertainment so that everybody can cheer and see the players they wanted to come out and see, really support the team before the postseason drive kind of begins. But Rockets sat basically everybody. They sat all the starters not named Jalen Green, no Steven Adams, no... Who else was missing in this game? Basically, everybody was missing. Everybody important, more or less, was missing in this game. And let's be honest, Jalen Green, he played, but he basically did cardio for the first, 15 minutes that he played, keeping his active game streak alive. He finished with just 5 points on 2 of 7 shooting. Jalen was literally in his street clothes by the time the third quarter started, and they panned the camera over to the bench during the third quarter, and Jalen was just over there chatting it up with Fred and Dillon and Alperen, whoever else. And he was already in his streets. So that looked like it was the plan from the jump. Let Jalen play a half of basketball, keep his active game streak alive, which, credit to him. He deserves it. He's been one of the NBA's Iron Men over this stretch and, continues to find a way to power through and stuff. So the rest is much needed for him. Absolutely. Even if they are cheesing it just a little bit. But this game was actually surprisingly competitive between the Rockets, C team / RGV Vipers squad and the Clippers playing it essentially full strength, because the Clippers, this game absolutely still matters for them. They're trying to stay out of the meat grinder that is the play-in tournament bracket in the Western Conference. Clippers currently riding after this win, a 6-game winning streak and sitting at 5th in the Western Conference, but still only separated by a half game between them and falling back into the play-in. So Clippers needed this game. They were playing at full strength. They were trying to win this game, and yet the Rockets were actually pretty surprisingly competitive without their usual supporting cast. I don't know if that's just a matchup thing. I don't know if it's an energy thing. Don't let the final score fool you. 134-117. Clippers used a really big second quarter. They won the second quarter 35-23. And they were able to kind of coast off of that for the rest of the game. But there were points where the Rockets cut it down to a single-digit lead. At the top of the fourth quarter, they cut it to single digits. I want to say it was like a 6-point lead at one point. And it forced Ty Lue to call a timeout and kind of rally the troops a little bit. And, at no point did I really think the Rockets were going to win this game without their mainstays, without their starters, without their key contributors. But I'll tell you what, the guys who were present and available put up a really, really valiant effort. Reed Sheppard leading the way with 20 points on 7 of 14 shooting in the starting lineup. We'll talk more about his performance in just a moment. Jock Landale did really solid, 11 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. Cam Whitmore, 14, 5, and 2 on 6 of 12 shooting. And then Tari Eason, the final starter, 17 points, 5 rebounds, couple of assists on 7 of 12 shooting. They also got 19 points from Uncle Jeff Green off the bench on 7 of 9 shooting, and then 16 points in 20 minutes for Aaron Holiday, knocking down 4 of 6 from downtown. Rockets were close. They were like right there on the precipice of being able to actually upset the Clippers without their usual, without their usual roster setup, without all the usual big hitters that they have. And I think that's just a little bit of a testament to the culture of the team and also the effectiveness of that stay ready crew. Like, this isn't going to be like a hot take, big takeaway kind of thing or whatever, but the Rockets are a significantly better team because of the ability for those guys to be able to step in and contribute on a night to night basis. Think about the entire season. Think about the entire body of work of this Rockets team to hit 52 wins, right? Think about all the different guys who have stepped in at various points. Jock Landale stepping in early when Steven Adams wasn't quite up to speed yet, and the Rockets needed some backup 5 minutes. Jeff Green stepping in situationally. Jayshawn Tate, didn't even mention him. He had 7 points, 4 boards, 3 of 5 shooting, but Jayshawn Tate has been maybe the most important of the stay ready crew all season long, stepping in whenever needed to shore up minutes, to plug a rotation spot, running backup points sometimes without extra ball handlers, running at the wings when Dillon Brooks or Tari or Jabari was missing time. All these guys up and down the roster who generally don't see playing time, who are generally buried on the bench, who aren't part of the Rockets, consistent 8, 9, 10-man rotation, for them to be able to be this level of competitive and this good just shows how much they actually work on their craft, how focused and determined they are behind the scenes. And you can only imagine, we've gotten little brief glimpses. I also apologize about I've been sick for a couple days, so hanging in there. But we've seen like glimpses and stuff of like Rockets practices back during training camp, and we get like a couple minutes here and there throughout the season, but that competitive edge, that factor definitely bleeds through. And it's not just a mentality that's embodied by the starting unit. It's embodied by the second team, third team, the Vipers guys, the two-way guys across the board. And that type of mentality permeating throughout the whole team makes everybody better. Because when you've got the A team, right? Fred, Jalen, Dillon, Amin, Alpi, and they're being guarded by these B and C team guys, right, further down the roster in practice, those guys are busting their ass to make sure that the starters are up to snuff, right? Iron sharpens iron. And if you've got bench guys who don't take their job seriously, bench guys who are just there cashing a check, they're like, I don't care, I'm not getting any minutes, I'm not taking this stuff seriously. That shows. It really does. And so it just like the bad stuff would show if the Rockets had a bunch of guys who were just kind of there to fill up the 12, 13, 14, 15 spots on the roster, it shows that the Rockets have rotation quality level players who are just kind of buried because of all the depth that they have on this team. So it was a fun game watching Reed Sheppard and Aaron Holiday bomb away from deep. Rockets managed to shoot 50% from downtown, 20 of 40. They were on fire from 3 in this game. It just ultimately wasn't enough at the end of the night. James Harden, 35 points on 18 shots, just a ridiculous performance from him. Kawhi Leonard added 22. Zubac put in 20. They got 16 off the bench from Bogdanovic. This is a Clippers team that's playing like a well-oiled machine, but the Rockets took it to them, or the Rockets B and C team guys took it to them, despite the fact that they were understaffed, undermanned, and it was still kind of a fun overall game. But coming up, I want to get into the specific standout performances from this game, some promising things that we did see in this one from guys like Reed Sheppard, Tari Eason, and N'Faly Dante continuing to try and make a name for himself, as well as we've got Phoenix Suns Pick Watch a little bit later in the show. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Look, Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible, file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Today's episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, Prize Picks keeps every game exciting. This week, I'm picking Jose Altuve for more than 1 home run and Jeremy Pena for more than 1 stolen base. It's that easy. Setting up a lineup takes less than 60 seconds, and when you win, your payout is quick, safe, and secure. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Really quickly, before getting into the specifics of some of the individual performances in this game, want to drop it out there that our next episode, we will be doing a mailbag episode. Been kind of acquiring questions from that over the past couple days. So I put a post on social media. I put one on the YouTube channel. Go comment if you've got a question or a topic that you'd like to see discussed on the show. Been a minute since we've done a mailbag, so be on the lookout for that. But let's go ahead and get into the individual performances in this one. I thought Reed Sheppard really stole the show. Just like last time when he started, when the Rockets decided to punt on that game against OKC, and the Rockets were, again, very surprisingly competitive in that game as well. Reed Sheppard, 20 points, 7 of 14 shooting. He was 6 of 10 from the three-point line, had 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, did have 4 turnovers in his 37 minutes of run. And the shooting is the shooting with Reed. Literally, they opened the first play of the game was a flare screen set for Reed Sheppard, and they threw the ball over the top to him, and he got a wide-open three-pointer. This fantastic little play design, great little, nothing fancy, nothing crazy, just a simple little screen to get Reed Sheppard wide open on the weak side wing so that he could knock down a shot. And then over the course of the game, we saw different moments of Reed Sheppard really leveraging his shooting. You could tell that the Clippers knew on the scouting report, like, okay, we got to, hug up tight on Reed, be on top of him, basically. But he had a number of really difficult shots in this game. None more difficult probably than the corner three-pointer that he hit with Kawhi Leonard draped all over him, kind of dipped his shoulder into him a little bit to create some separation, then just elevated and drained it from the corner. That's not an easy shot to hit with Kawhi all on top of you like that. So some really impressive shot making from Reed in this game. The facilitating, the ball handling was there. He wasn't, look, this was not a perfect game. I'm not going to sit here and completely gas him up. There were some moments where he absolutely was getting sped up by the Clippers. Some of the length, the on-ball defense was kind of bothering him a little bit. That's what led to some of the 4 turnovers that he had. In fact, there was a set of back-to-back possessions, I want to say somewhere there in the second quarter, if I'm not mistaken. I did not take meticulous notes on this game like I do many other games because, again, this game did not matter. The Rockets have the 2 seed all sewed up. The Clippers were trying and the Rockets weren't. So I'm going completely off rip here. No notes on my second monitor like I usually have. But there was, I believe, a set of possessions where Reed turned it over back to back at one point in the game. And you can see there's still moments where he does get a little bit more sped up, but there's also really impressive moments where he just understands how to move the basketball, who to get the ball to. He had a beautiful little feed. I want to say it was to Tari Eason under the rim, where he drove in in transition, kind of collapsed the defense, and then got a sweet little bounce pass over to Tari Eason to finish it too. It might have been Tari, it might have been Nafali. I'm not 100% sure. But just some solid overall minutes from Reed Sheppard. And we heard the other day, it was somebody on the Hoop Collective podcast basically saying that if Reed Sheppard had been getting, 30 to 35 minutes all season long, if he'd been playing on a bad team, that he'd be the runaway favorite, quote unquote, for Rookie of the Year. And I really firmly believe that. Like, there's a reason Reed Sheppard was taken number 3 overall. You see the flashes, you see the glimpses. Now, it's a bit of a tough shake that he got drafted to a situation like the Rockets where there isn't really any available playing time for him from the jump, and he really wasn't quite ready for the minutes that the Rockets were trying to give him at the start of the season. But there's very much a reality now where if you had to ask me between Reed Sheppard and Aaron Holiday who you want to give the minutes to, I'm probably still leaning Aaron Holiday for the rest of this season and for any potential playoff run that the Rockets are on, simply because Aaron Holiday's the vet. He's the more experienced player. He knows what he's doing. He'll stay in his lane. He's not going to get sped up, slowed down, whatever. Reed is definitely, as long as he's a part of the team and not part of some bigger trade down the line, whatever, Reed is absolutely going to supplant Aaron Holiday in the rotation next season. Now, I won't go so far as to say, we don't know what the next team is going to look like. Maybe Reed is the starting point guard and Fred VanVleet's gone. I'm not going to go crazy down that. But at his floor, Reed Sheppard is good enough now to take on that role that Aaron Holiday basically had with this team, the role that the Rockets tried to give him earlier this season. You're not seeing the indecisiveness in his game anymore about, shooting the ball. You're seeing him be a bit more confident with his handle, a bit more confident in his playmaking abilities, kind of hunting his shot at times offensively, which is something that a shooter like him needs to do to really be effective. So just some solid overall encouraging minutes from Reed Sheppard in this game. And it kind of goes to show that, this game, the Thunder game, right? If Reed had basically just been starting all 82 games on a bad team and getting up as many shots as he wanted and running the show and doing this, that, and the other thing, he would absolutely probably be the runaway favorite for Rookie of the Year this season. He's that talented. He really is. We also saw Tari Eason have a pretty solid overall game. It was interesting watching Kawhi, the OG Claw, go up against the new Claw in Tari Eason. Although we're not calling Tari Eason the new Claw. I don't like that. We just call him Peso. That's what he is. He's Peso, or he's one of the Terror Twins, or what was Alp's nickname for him last season? Gloves? Gloves, because he's got the big hands. Seriously, though, they talked about it on the broadcast. Between Kawhi Leonard and Tari Eason, those have to be two of the biggest sets of hands in the entire NBA. I still remember during, right after Tari Eason got drafted, and we were in Las Vegas for Summer League, and it was like one of his first or second time ever doing media availability with media. He was kind of animated with his hands, and he was trying to tell us something, and he was like moving his hands around a lot, and he like bumped my phone, and I'm like a good few feet away from him, and he like managed to bump like my phone and like another reporter like once or twice, because he's just got like they're like baseball mitts. That's how big his hands are. But he had 17 on 7 of 12 in this game, and really came alive there. It felt like in the third quarter, the second half, knocking down some shots. The 3-ball, it was nice to see him get some of those to go, because he's been really struggling from downtown as of late. And it really does feel like with Tari that the coaching staff this year has really tried to empower him to do a little bit more as far as handling the basketball. Sometimes he walks the ball up and he's initiating offensive possessions. You see him a lot more willing to take opposing players off the dribble and attack off the bounce this year than, his first 2 years combined, where he was really more just the prototypical standstill spot up 3-point shooter. And there wasn't really much else that you'd get some like straight line drives, but now you see Tari with kind of the counters, and you see him driving, and he'll, get denied on the drive. And instead of, trying to take it up through 2 or 3 defenders at the rim and draw a foul or just muscle through guys, he'll get to that little turnaround fadeaway that he's developed. He's also been a much more consistent passing threat this season, especially once he gets the defense in rotation by driving off the bounce. And I really do get the feel that this coaching staff thinks that there's a lot more than kind of meets the eye with Tari, and that there's more there for them to kind of grow and cultivate and mold. And it makes you wonder where Tari Eason would be if he hadn't missed so much of last season, right? He essentially missed 75% of last season, which is a huge chunk of his development time, right? So when you think about all the other core members of the core 7 who haven't had that much development time, right? Think about think about where Tari Eason is at with his production, his role, his capabilities on the floor, and then imagine what it's going to be like, with another year of growth, of development, of time on the court, honing his skills. Tari has the chance to be a really, really special player. And that's evident every single time he steps on the basketball court. Wanted to highlight here too, N'Faly Dante, who only played 14 minutes. He had 4 points, couple rebounds, couple blocked shots, but it feels like whenever Dante plays, he makes the most of his minutes. He caught a lob in this game. He did. Where's my Steven Silas
lob threat?
There we go. He got up for that lob jam, and there's definitely a level of N'Faly Dante's game that is not present whatsoever in any of the other Rockets bigs on this roster, right? He's a vertical floor spacing big. He can play above the rim, which LP can't do, Steven Adams can't do, Jock Landale can't do, and even Jabari can't do it as the small ball 5 or whatever, small ball. And so you can see why in some of these glimpses, these moments where the Rockets were high on Dante, his defensive impact, his ability to kind of deter shots at the rim when he's in the game and also contest shots pretty well at the rim. The rebounding, it has been solid previously. He only had 2 in this game, but I think there's an interesting player there. I don't know if Dante's ever going to make it as a full-fledged NBA player, signed to a standard deal contract, but there's enough to like there that if he were to get some solid run, he's been killing it with the Vipers, so he's been crushing it in the G League. But if he were ever to get some solid run, if the Rockets ever dealt with a bout of injuries and needed to bring him up for, a consistent stretch of playing time, I feel like, especially as he were to establish chemistry with the guards on his team about how they want their screens set, how to roll to the rim, how to be the recipient of some of those lob passes.
Lob threat.
He would actually do really well for himself. I like that the Rockets have him on a 2-way deal, and maybe it's something that we'll see turn into a standard NBA contract down the line. Maybe if the Rockets decide to maybe include Jock Landale in a trade as salary filler or something this offseason, then N'Faly Dante gets the call up to be the Rockets kind of third, their tertiary big on nights where Adams is resting or whatever. I don't know. We'll see. But there's a lot to like with N'Faly Dante at this point, honestly. Coming up, Phoenix Suns Pick Watch 2025. The Suns have officially been eliminated from championship contention. Let's be real, they weren't ever contenders, but they've been officially eliminated from the playoffs, and that means the Houston Rockets are guaranteed a lottery pick in this year's NBA draft. We'll talk about that and more here in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the very next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 2024-2025 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the very next day from noon until midnight. Look, so you enjoyed the 50-piece from whoever it was, right? Whether it was Luka, Steph, maybe Jalen Green, 50-piece cometh in the playoffs. That'd be pretty nice, right? The very next day, from noon until midnight, you get 50% off an order at eligible merchants. It's that simple. Maybe you have a watch party you want to plan the next day. Maybe you just want to pick up, a little discounted meal at work the following day. There's multiple ways you can enjoy that 50-point performance with DoorDash. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save when any player scores 50 or more in a game. Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the very next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50 from noon until midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right. Phoenix Suns Pick Watch 2025. The Suns officially, mercifully put out of their misery from this season because, my goodness, Suns have been a disaster class. And really, before getting into the pick stuff, I want to give a lot of credit here Rafael Stone was mocked, ridiculed, flambéed, charbroiled, cooked, whatever words you want to use to describe the Rockets a lot of Rockets fans' reactions when the Rockets traded the Brooklyn Nets picks back to Brooklyn and received the future Suns picks. A lot of Rockets fans were confused by this trade, and I tried to highlight the rationale and the understanding behind it, and I thought it was a smart move at the time. I thought it made a lot of sense. You wanted to leverage the Brooklyn Nets picks against Brooklyn, and the other outcome was, okay, you don't entertain the deal with Brooklyn. They keep Mikal Bridges. They keep all their pieces. They have no incentive to bottom out or tank, and then you're stuck with some middling first-round picks, right? That would have been the worst-case scenario for both teams. Instead, Rafael Stone came to the table, drafted up this deal. The Nets, with Sean Marks, they were able to figure it out, and then they agreed. They were able to bottom out, and now the Nets have the 6th best odds in the NBA draft lottery this year of landing a top pick. So what are they at currently? Let me see. Nets have a 37.2% chance at a top 4 pick and a 9% chance at the number 1 overall selection. And they're not going to move up or down either way. There's only a couple games left in the regular season. They are sitting 2.5 ahead of or behind Philadelphia and 3.5 ahead of Toronto. So the Nets are firmly situated in that 6th best lottery odds spot. It was a fantastically wonderful trade by Rafael Stone. This is also the second time that Rafael Stone has bet on the demise of a Kevin Durant-led super team. And I think that the original version of the trade, betting on the Nets falling apart, that one was a little bit more wild in how it all played out, with the fact that Harden and KD and Kyrie only played so few games together, and the injuries and all the bad luck that fell upon that franchise for it to work out for the Rockets with those picks. But to do it again, and then to have as many doubters as he had, and then to watch it play out almost as perfectly as you could have hoped. Like, yeah, the Suns pick isn't, top 5 or anything that incredible, but it's currently sitting at 9th. And quick reminder, the Brooklyn Nets pick that turned into Reed Sheppard last draft, that pick was sitting at 9th best lottery odds when it jumped up and became number 3 overall. And then the Nets essentially gift wrapped Reed Sheppard to the Houston Rockets. So the Rockets are in another one of those positions this year where there is still a little bit of wiggle room, where the Phoenix Suns could, I think, lose a couple more games and maybe eclipse the San Antonio Spurs over these final couple games of the regular season. I'm not sure who has the direct head-to-head tiebreaker. I'm honestly not even sure how I guess the tiebreakers just work in inverse fashion. But the Suns are likely going to finish somewhere in that 8th, 9th, or 10th spot in the overall standings. Right now they're sitting at 9th, which gives them a 17.3% chance at a top 4 pick and a 3.8% chance at the number 1 overall pick. The dilemma really kicks in trying to figure out what the Rockets should do with this pick. And we're going to explore a couple options here, but we're not that's the $1 million question for this organization, is for an organization that is coming off of being the 2nd best team in the Western Conference, the 4th best team overall in the entire NBA, has an already blossoming young core and not enough minutes for everybody, right? Cam Whitmore has basically been a non-factor this season. Reed Sheppard got a little bit of a taste of the rotation earlier, but then got shelved for Aaron Holiday. The Rockets at some point do not have enough minutes for all the young guys. And that's the one downside when you're playing high-level winning basketball. You do not have developmental minutes to give to some of these guys. So my question would be, and I have yet to have the time to explore this because everything's been so focused on the Rockets and their playoff run and all that, and that's where a majority of our attention is going to continue to be focused. However, in the coming, couple weeks and so, as we kind of get into some postseason basketball, one of the other things we'll probably start doing is some very early kind of preliminary draft research like we do every year on this show, where we take a look at the draft, we go through and we do draft profiles and we do a LOR big board and all that stuff. Because I think there's got to be like a distinct cutoff in my mind of, okay, if the Rockets pick lands here and so is on the board, whoever's there, whether it's, Cooper Flagg, whether it's Ace Bailey, Dillon Harper, VJ Edgecombe, whoever it is of the top projected prospects, there's got to be a cutoff between Rockets should absolutely keep the pick and take one of these top prospects versus, okay, here's the drop. XYZ guy is no longer available. It makes more sense for the Rockets to trade the pick or trade back in the draft and, draft a guy that they can stash and maybe pick up a future asset. And there's so many different permutations that can be explored here. But I want to know for you, because, and again, I'm saying this with absolutely zero draft reconnaissance at all this season. Like, I've watched a little bit of Cooper Flagg and I like earlier on some Bailey and Harper. I have not seen much. All right. So if you've been paying attention to college ball and you've seen some of these prospects playing, what's your cutoff? Like, if the Rockets pick jumps up and if it's 4th overall, do you keep the 4th overall pick? Do you draft one of these top prospects? Or if it stays at 9, maybe it jumps up a little bit. I guess it technically can't jump up to like 6. That's not how that works. It would either jump up to somewhere in the top 4, or you stay put at 9, or potentially you get pushed back down a little bit if any of the other guys behind you in the lottery odds gets bumped up into the top 4. So Rockets pick is either going to be top 4, number 9, or slightly worse than number 9 if they get bumped back. So 10, 11, 12, that kind of thing. I wonder what the internal kind of methodology is here for the Rockets. I wonder what their direction tells them they want to go. Because again, drafting another young prospect when you already don't have room for a couple of the prospects on the roster is tough to imagine. But depending on the quality of said prospect, right? Like if you land the number 1 overall pick, I feel like you take Cooper Flagg and you don't even think twice about it. And then you just figure it out next year. And maybe you're a little bit worse next year because you're trying to, develop a rookie and you're trying to give him big minutes and trying to bring him up to speed. Maybe that's the case. Maybe they treat it like they did with Amin Thompson and Cam Whitmore in their rookie seasons, right? They come off the bench. You don't have to start a guy like Cooper Flagg just because of his collegiate resume and because he's the number 1 prospect coming out. You bring him off the bench. You have him play 20, 25 minutes a night, and nowhere is that going to necessarily stunt his development, but it's just more about where are you going to get the minutes at that point. At that point, you're looking at like a Dillon Brooks trade or something like that to open up a pathway for him to get the developmental run that he ultimately needs. But that's kind of the $1 million question facing the Rockets. What to do with this Phoenix Suns pick now that it is guaranteed going to be a lottery pick? What do you do? Do you draft another piece of young talent and just keep stocking the cupboards with all these young, talented basketball players? Or do you package the pick and, trade it for a win now piece? Or, and this is, mystery door number 3, whatever, is maybe you just trade for more assets down the line. Maybe you flip this pick into a couple other future first-round picks. That would be something creative that I could fully see Rafael Stone ultimately doing. I want your thoughts on what you want to see the Houston Rockets do with this Phoenix Suns pick. I want your thoughts on the standout performances against the Clippers. I know it was an L, but there was still some promise shown in that game. Give me all your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Remember, the best way to help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Also, check out our Locked On Rockets newsletter. Would sincerely appreciate all of that support. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And I look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.